Hello, today we're going to start talking about correlation. So anytime you have a set of ordered pairs, which usually we're going to see as either points on a graph, which is what we'll see today, or in a table of those ordered pairs, you can describe whether or not there's any correlation between the data. We can talk about those correlations being strong, weak, moderate, or none. And we can talk about those correlations being positive or negative. Strong correlations just means the points are close together nearly in a straight line. Positive means that the slope of that line that would be closest to those points has a positive slope. So this first graph right here shows a strong positive correlation. You can see that blue line has a positive slope and all the red points are very close to that blue line. The next one is a weak positive correlation. The line that would be closest to those points still has a positive slope, so that's where the positive part comes from. But it's weak because those red points aren't as close together and as close to being in a straight line as the ones before it were. Strong negative is the same idea as a strong positive, except for now that the line that best describes those points has a negative slope. Same thing with weak negative, negative slope, but the points are further spread apart. Moderate is kind of like a halfway between strong and negative. It's not super close to being a straight line, but the points aren't as scattered far apart as they would be in a weak correlation. So moderate's kind of in between. Things that look like this very last graph right here that I just accidentally drew on are what's called no correlation because there's no line that best describes those points. If you can't tell if something is positive or negative, chances are it's a no correlation. So let's try a few of these out. We're not going to worry too much about moderate, strong, and weak right now. We're just going to worry about positive, negative, or none. So we're going to look at each of these and see if there's a positive correlation, negative correlation, or no correlation. This first one would be a positive correlation. If you imagine the line that would best fit those points, that line would have a positive slope. It'd be probably somewhere around there. The next one would be a negative correlation. Those points are going down as we go to the right. Something like that. With this next one, it's pretty hard to tell where a good line would be. So since it's hard to tell where the best line of fit would be, this one is a no correlation. This next one is another negative correlation. Those points are going in a negative direction. The line has a negative slope. This one right here is another no correlation. There's no one line that best represents those. Can't tell if it's positive or negative. Whereas this last one would be a positive correlation. We'll talk more in the future about how to find those lines that best fit. For today, we're just going to kind of focus on what type of correlation we're looking at. Another way we can tell the correlation that a set of data has without seeing the points or a table of values is if we know that data is R value. We'll talk about how to find these R values later on, but R value is just a number between -1 and +1, including -1 and +1, that describes how strong of a correlation we have and if it's positive or negative. If your correlation is positive, then your R value will be positive also. And right here, I have the categories for strong, moderate, and weak positive correlations. I've also put them down here in a number line because sometimes it's easier to visualize things on a number line. So anything greater than 0.1, but less than +1, is going to fall somewhere in the positive correlation category. And we have these split into weak positive, moderate positive, and strong positive. You have the same idea on the negative side for negative correlations. Any R values between -0.1 and -1 are going to be negative correlations. And then they're strong, moderate, or weak depending on where they fall in between those two numbers. If you have no correlation, so remember like those points that you couldn't tell if it was positive or negative, it's going to be somewhere in here. And those are the values that are closest to 0. R equals 0 exactly would be a perfect no correlation. Anything that's between -0.1 and +0.1 is also pretty close to 0. So we would consider those to be no correlations also. So the last thing we're going to do for today is we're going to look at some R values and classify them as strong, moderate, or weak, and positive, negative, or no correlation. I'm going to keep that number line in view as long as I can because I think it's pretty helpful. So this first one, R equals negative 0.58. Negative 0.58 would probably be somewhere around here on the number line, roughly. And so that falls into the moderate negative correlation category. Next up, R equals -1 would be right here. That would be the strongest possible negative correlation you could have. So this one would be a strong negative. If you were to graph that, those points would be perfectly in a straight line. Next up, R equals 0.29. R equals 0.29 would be close to 0.33, be right about here. And so that falls in the weak positive category. Next up, R equals 0.39. That's going to be a little bit bigger than 0.33 right about here. So that would be a moderate positive correlation. R equals 0.05. So 0.05, I can scroll back up so we can look at this a little bit, would be halfway between 0 and 0.1, so right about here. That falls in the no correlation part of the number line. So we just say no correlation. We don't say things like weak no correlation or strong no correlation. If it's no correlation, it's just no correlation. Same idea with the next one. R equals 0 is a perfect no correlation. And so that would fall in that same category. Last but not least, R equals negative 0.68. Negative 0.68, be careful with negative numbers. It would be really close to negative 0.67, but between negative 0.67 and -1. So that falls just into the strong negative category. Last but not least, R equals -0.02. That falls right here, really, really close to 0. And so that one is also no correlation. That is it for today. Hopefully now you're getting a good idea of what types of correlation that exist. Hope you have a great day.